Welcome to the Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Hany Rambod, and I'm here with the Texas Titan himself, none other than Branch Warren. Welcome, Branch.
What's up, brother? Thank you for having me.
Dude, it's been great. One of the main reasons I moved to the DFW area was because of our conversations. Obviously, a lot of time with Ronnie Coleman here in Arlington, but also us speaking about all the great things that Dallas helps with, just in terms of just the logistics, the people, and everything. Those conversations we've been having for many, many years, and I really thank you for that, because it's made a big, big difference to us in terms of our quality of life.
Well, welcome to Texas.
It's been great, bro.
So it's Texas is, like we talked about. It's cost of living's great. The people are super friendly for the most part, and it's just a very business friendly environment, and it's a great place to raise a family.
Yeah, I mean, we did a podcast a while back when I first started podcasting remotely, and it was great, but it's always better to have someone in person. And with you being here, I really want to give people a little bit of an idea of what you've been doing since your competitive days. Most people who follow this podcast who don't know who Branch is. Branch has won. How many Arnolds did you win?
2.
2 Arnolds, and then you were as high as second place at the Olympia. I know where this is going to go. Shit.
Yeah, second place in Olympia. If my good buddy Hany over here hadn't trained Jay, I can probably say I would have won one. So thanks, Hany.
I know, dude, I feel so bad to this day.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
you
no, a little bit. I do, because you're such a great guy.
So.
That's what it is. You're such a great guy, and there's so many different backstories, and I think our audience loves to hear about backstories. They like to talk about. They always ask about specific times in the athlete's career, the turning points. And what I want to do is I want to start off with saying that you started in high school training, didn't you?
I did.
And you started competing as a teenager, and of all people, against Jay Cutler.
Yeah, so give a little backstory. So I grew up in a cattle ranch in West Texas. My grandfather's cattle ranch, and our closest neighbor was like 8 miles away. So we were way out there, huge ranch. And, you grew up on a ranch. Anybody who's ever grew up in the country and on a ranch knows the work ain't never done. So I always had chores, and you had to, you just work hard. It's just, and if that's how you grow up, you don't know no different, right?
Right.
You just think that's how everybody lives. And so when I was in high school, we moved to the Fort Worth area. Went to a much larger school. And the school I was at, the 2 best looking girls were my cousins. So, yeah, so we barely had enough people to have a football team. And so when I moved to the Fort Worth area, we had like 650 kids in my graduating class. So, a lot bigger school and a lot more girls. And so I wanted to make the football team. And this is back before they gave out participation awards, right? So you had to try out and make the team. And if you didn't, your ass got cut. And they said, come back and try again next year. So, I was like, I need to work out and get bigger and stronger if I'm going to make the team. So I had no money. And I used to...
Branch, bring the microphone a little closer to your face because you get in and out a little bit. There you go, buddy.
How about that?
That's much better.
So I had no money, and I met this kid in the neighborhood, and he had a membership at this local gym. So he'd go in, open the back door, I'd slip in, and we'd work out. And this went on for like several weeks, months, whatever it was. And finally, there was a bodybuilder there. I'd never seen a bodybuilder. This guy was probably 5'10", 280, 290 pounds.
Do you remember who it was?
Mark Hanlon.
Okay.
And so he came up to me one day, and he goes, hey, kids. He goes, you don't know what you're doing. I see you in here every day. He goes, you try hard, but you're going to hurt yourself. He goes, come in tomorrow, and I'm going to show you how to train right. I'm like, okay. He walked off. My buddy goes, bro, you going to freaking come back? That dude's going to kill us. I go, hell yeah, I'm going to come back. He goes, man, you're going to die, bro. And so this guy, Mark, every week he had a different girlfriend. They were all hot. He drove a Corvette, and I was slipping in the alleyway one day to slip in the gym, and he was fighting these 2 dudes in the back, knocked them both out. So, you're like 14, 15 years old.
You saw the fight?
Yeah, I saw the fight. He laid both these dudes out, kicked one dude in the head, fucking beat the crap out of the dude.
Wow, that's some pretty good moves. To kick a 280-pound bodybuilder, kick someone in the head.
Dude he was an athlete, and everybody thinks bodybuilders are like muscle bound and can't move. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And this guy was an athlete. And so you're 15 years old, you see this guy, and you're like, that's what I want. Get hot chicks, drive cool cars, and kick ass, and get respect.
That's life.
Yeah, and you get respect everywhere you went, right? So I'm like, that's all you want when you're 14, 15 years old. I'm like, what else is there, man? I want a Corvette, hot chicks, and freaking beat everybody's ass. Life is good. So I'm like, dude, I'm going to show up. And my friend's like, you're going to die. I showed up. I died. I threw up like 3 times. And
what'd you guys train?
Legs.
Oh, of course.
So came back the next day, kind of a repeat of the first day, just different body part. So all week I came and he trained me on everything. Next week, same thing. And then after that, he said, all right, now you know how to work out hard, what it feels like. You know how to do the exercises right. I'm going to write your workouts up. You have a question, you ask me. I'm like, yes, sir. And so I trained all week, all summer. Gained like almost 20 pounds that summer, just eating and training. You know, because when you're young, you can gain weight if you just, especially young boys, if you eat and train, and you'll gain weight. So I made the football team, started. I was a fullback, had a great season. Fast forward the next summer, I'm in there training, and he goes, hey, kid, you ever think about competing? And I'm looking at this dude going, are you nuts? You know, because I've never seen, that's the only bodybuilder I've ever seen.
Right.
And I'm thinking, are you crazy? You know, I'm like 160 pounds, whatever I was, 70 pounds. And he goes, there's a show this weekend, come check it out and see what you think. So I went, checked it out, and he goes, what do you think? I go, I could do the teenage division. I think if I train for it, he goes, all right, there's a show at the end of the summer. He goes, we're going to go to a real gym and train. And I go, a real gym? He goes, dude, this ain't a real gym, it's a health club. He goes, I'm going to take you to a bodybuilding gym. So Monday morning came around. I met him. He took me down there. We pull up. It's a gravel parking lot. The music's so loud you can hear it out in the parking lot. Garage doors open. And I walk in. He introduced me to the owner. He said, hey, this is the kid I was telling you about. He wants to compete. And I said,
is that Brian?
That was Brian.
Brian Dobson.
And 1992. And he said, I said, hey, I want to do this show at the end of the summer. I said, I don't have any money. You know, I'll clean the place up, take the trash out, whatever. Just if I can trade out just to train here. He said, let me look at you. So I went posed, did some shots. He said, I'll tell you what, kid. He goes, I'm not going to charge you anything. He goes, you represent the gym and win. You don't have to pay. If you lose, you're going to work it off. Well, that was 1992. I still haven't bought a membership. I'm still trained there. And,
that's awesome. So
the other part of that story was this guy, Mark, was Ronnie Coleman's workout partner.
Okay.
Ronnie was still a cop. He was an amateur.
Yep.
So that first show, Brian trained me, Mark, and Ronnie together. And I won my show. And then I think the next year, Ronnie won the Universe, turned pro.
Yep.
And, you know, back then there was no internet, no social media.
Right.
We thought we were doing it right, but you really didn't know. You read Flex Magazine and Muscle Fitness and MD. That was your source of information, right?
Right.
So it was kind of bro science. And we thought we were doing it right. We thought we were training right. And we started winning. And kind of, lo and behold, we were doing it probably better than anybody else was at that time. So, you know, Ronnie kept doing well. I kept doing well. And moved all the way up. So a couple years later, 93, I think the next year, I did the Teen Nationals. And Jay Cutler was there. First time I met him, he was heavyweight, I was a light heavy. And we competed against each other from that day for the next 20 years.
Who won the show?
I beat him. You know, Jay was big as a teenager. I think he was like 218 or something as a teenager.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I had big legs, right?
Right.
But he came walking backstage. And he remember those hot skins, striped tights or whatever. And he had a T-Michael, like a T-Michael sweatshirt or something like that on. Remember those big things? He came walking in. Everybody's like, man, look at this dude. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, there ain't no way he's hard if he's that big. And then I'm like, because the teenage collegiate nationals, I'm thinking, there's no way he's a teenager. He's got to be in the collegiate division. He was a teenager. And he stripped down. I was like, all right, man, I'm harder than him. But he was freaking huge, even as a teenager.
But you out-conditioned him.
Out-conditioned him for the overall.
Nice.
So
nice. And the crazy thing is, Brian Dobson, for those of you that don't know Brian owns Metroflex, Arlington, where not just Branch trained, obviously Ronnie Coleman trained, Johnny Jackson was there. You have a lot of greats. And the greatest thing about that gym, I was training with Ronnie there in the early 2000s. And when I was coming in there, I was like, kept telling myself, how do these guys do it? Because I was used to go to Venice.
Yeah.
Right. I lived in Northern California, but I would travel to Venice and I would see Flex train and Cormier train and all these guys train. But again, air conditioning, Charles was always there training them. I was sitting there just kind of like, you know, doing my own thing. I was competing all through the 90s as a natural bodybuilder. And when I got to Arlington, number one, for those that haven't done it, you should definitely make the pilgrimage, because what it is, it's the rawest form of hardcore. There is no place that's more hardcore. It's not even a gym. What it is it's a mechanics bay. Mm-hmm. Okay? Tell me if I'm wrong.
It was a mechanic shop before it became a gym.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So when you pull in, it's just rows of mechanic shops. And then the last one, it's got roll-ups, and there's a bunch of equipment in there. Mm-hmm. So it smells like gasoline. It smells like, you know, oil. Like there was a bunch of old transmissions that were in there. Probably a lift or two might have been in there before for, you know, a car lift or whatnot. And there's no air conditioning. There's just fans. I don't know. Is there air conditioning there now?
No, never will be.
And the treadmill looked like something out of the Flintstones. Like it didn't even work. You had just, I mean, you don't need a tetanus shot because you're going to get tetanus and your body will build an immune system to it.
Yeah, when COVID came, I wasn't afraid because I was like, I trained at Metroflex for 30 years. I'm like, I ain't worried about, I ain't fuck COVID. I got shit on me.
And you trained there before Ronnie did, right? Were you there before Ronnie?
No, Ronnie was there, I think, 2 years before I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I forget. Ronnie's actually about you and I are the same age. We're both 10 years older. So he's about 10 years older, right? So when Ronnie was there, it was kind of the same situation. He ran into Brian. I think he ended up working off of a membership because he represented the gym, and as long as he won, he was going to get a membership, I believe, wasn't it?
I think the story on Ronnie was a lot of police officers used to train at Metroflex.
Okay.
And Ronnie got hired as a police officer there in Arlington, and some other guys at the gym kept telling Brian about this guy. There, man, you got to see this guy, man. He didn't even hardly work out, and he's incredible, blah, blah, blah. And Brian would go, so bring him in. So he brought him in. And of course, Brian saw him. I think he's in a tank top. He goes, hey, man, you ever think about competing? Brian said, nah, man, I ain't doing that. I ain't wearing them little underwear. And
little underwear, is that what we called it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
So Brian goes, so I'll tell you what. He goes, I'll give you a free membership, and I'll train you if you'll do this show in 6 months. Brian said, free membership? Okay. And
all he had to do was hear the word free.
Free membership and free training. And Brian trained him 6 months, and he stepped on stage at the Texas State Championships or whatever show it was back in the day, and people kind of heard about this guy, you know, because everybody's seen him at Metroflex. He steps on stage, and the whole place just gasped. They're like, what the hell? And, of course, he blew everybody away. I think he forgot his routine. And I remember Brian told him, he said, man, if you forget your routine, do front double bicep, back double bicep, and most muscular. And about halfway through, he forgot his routine, so he just started hitting those shots. The crowd went nuts. They're like standing up cheering. It was insane.
It was just next level.
Yeah.
Wow. And, you know, obviously, Ronnie and I go way back, but the biggest thing that I think about when I went there, I said, first, how do you guys train in the heat? It's something that it's like, do you feel like when you're in that heat, it actually gives you better workout physically, or do you feel like, or mentally possibly give you that fortitude? Because I know so many people that complain, oh, I don't have enough air conditioning in my gym, or I need more fans in my gym, or there's a little bit too much humidity in my gym, or where I live, or whatever it is. Do you feel like it was an advantage physically or emotionally or both when it came to training in an area where, when I was with Ronnie, he would do walking lunges outside, and it was in this kind of heat. It was 103, 104. The weekend I came, it was the humidity because it had rained the night before, and there's puddles, and he didn't give a shit. No. He was like, he would grab the barbell, throw a couple plates on it, do walking lunges with 2 plates, start off with 1, work his way up. But I'm like, man, you're going to slip on that puddle, and the puddle's got oil everywhere because, again, the parking lot's not even paved right. It's got potholes out the ass. Then you also have all, the heat. And I'm just thinking to myself, all of the like red flags, but you guys went through it. And not only did you go through it, but you excelled. Do you feel that did that help you in physically or mentally, or what do you see yourself?
I think it helped physically and mentally, and I think it's an attitude. You're there to fucking work. Okay? Life ain't comfortable. And show me a champion in any sport that didn't make great sacrifices, right? When we went to the gym, we're not there to take pictures. We're not there to get a date. We're there to work. When you can ask Ronnie. Ronnie was there to win. Same reason I was there. I was there to win. I grew up watching these guys, train. That's the only way I knew. That's the only gym I'd really been to, really. And, it was, you go in the parking lot and you do lunges. It's 108 today. Yeah, so we're doing legs. You do lunges. It just got through raining. Yeah, so do lunges. That's just what it is. And I think it's that mentality. It's like that warrior mentality that no matter what, you just fucking train. As far as the heat goes, I grew up in the country on a ranch, so I was used to the heat, being outside, working, sweating. I was just part of it. And these people that complain about the gym being too hot, I'm like, it's a gym. You're supposed to sweat, right?
Yeah.
I don't get it, man. I go to some of these gyms sometimes when I travel, and even locally, and
it's freezing.
Nobody's sweating.
Right.
I'm like, how do you even do that? I mean, I don't get it. I hate it. And once you get used to breathing outside air, it's so much better.
Yeah.
Especially here, on those, before I would ever go heavy, I made sure I had a good sweat and I was warmed up good before I'd ever go heavy. When it's 103 inside the gym, it doesn't take long to warm up. Everything gets loose, your joints get warmed up, and you can bang. If it's 70 degrees in the gym with fans blowing on you. It takes a little bit longer to get warmed up, and it's just not the same feeling. So I hate training in air conditioning. I've trained without air conditioning for pretty much my entire career, and that's what I prefer. And I think if you get used to it, it's good. Now, if you're not used to that and you try to train right now, you go to Metroflex in August right now. I mean, this past weekend, I think it was 110 every day.
Yep.
I mean, you're probably going to
Because Ronnie's still out there.
Yeah, and I trained there every day for 30 years up until 2 years ago when I moved up north, and it's over an hour drive now. But I miss it. I still train at Metroflex, just a different one. It's the same thing, garage doors.
Which one do you go to?
Metroflex Plano now.
Plano.
Yeah,
Okay.
So it's the same thing.
But you also go to Destination sometimes too, right?
Train Destination sometimes.
Does it bother you? Is it like, how is that? Because it's so different. Destination is kind of like a regular gym. Still a great gym, hardcore gym. But when you're in there and you're training in that environment because you're so used to that hardcore raw nature, what is that like when you're in a gym like Destination, which is more of a regular style gym?
There's a ton of pros that work out in there. A lot of pros, a lot of good ones. Clarita works out there. Keon works out there. Just to name a few. Natalia Mello, former Miss Olympia, Bikini Olympia, trains there. Many, many others. It's a great gym, great equipment. It's air conditioned. I just don't. Nothing wrong with that. I prefer not air conditioning. It's I'm there. I'm working on the inner team with Gas and Better Bodies a lot. So my main thing is just everybody knows me there.
Yeah.
And so then they feel like they can talk to you.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
That's the hard part. If it wasn't for that, it'd be a lot easier to train there.
Yeah.
Because I train, I summed it up. People ask me all the time, why do you still train so hard?
Mm-hmm.
Some people are trained because they're bodybuilders. I was a bodybuilder because I love to train. There's a big difference.
That's a huge difference.
And I still love to train. Am I going to compete again? Absolutely not. But I'm still going to train because I love training.
You still look like you're in amazing shape.
And, so when I train, I don't want to be interrupted. I don't want to talk to people. And, at Metroflex, I trained there for 30 years. There was guys that were in that gym for 20 years. I didn't know their name.
Have you ever gotten pissed off to the point where you were prepping and somebody came over there and just absolutely annoyed the shit out of you to the point where you lost it?
Oh, yeah. Several times at Metroflex.
At Metroflex?
Yeah.
What happened?
So kind of back in the end of Ronnie's career, which was about the time that, my career was taking off. So this place became like a circus. Like, you ever see that Rocky movie?
Yep.
Where they leave the old gym and then they go to the new gym and all these fans and people are there. It kind of, not to that extent, but every day we had tourists in there, which was cool. But when you're getting ready to squat 600 pounds and somebody gets in front of you with a camera 3 feet in front of you and starts snapping pictures, it kind of pisses you off, right? And, so I think these guys, I don't know where they were from. They were foreign. And I told them, step back or something. And I remember I got underneath the weight and I'm going, these dudes are 3 feet in front of me, flat with a flash on, snapping. And I lost my shit. I remember I threw the weight back on the rack. I grabbed the camera, fucking threw it outside. And of course they're freaking out. And Johnny's sitting there thinking, dude, I thought you were gonna hit these dudes. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck? I'm like, who thinks that's cool, man? I'm like, you just don't do that. And so Brian, it got kind of wacky for a while. And Brian finally put up some signs that says, no cameras in the gym. And leave the pros alone. So
don't feed the animals.
Yeah.
It's like being at the zoo, man.
Yeah. So I mean, and the thing is, you know me. You've known me for 20 years.
Yeah,
dude. When I'm that hour and a half of the day when I'm training, that's my time.
Yeah.
That other 23 hours of the day, I'll talk to anybody. I'll take pictures with anybody, anytime, any place. And but dude, you got to respect that's my 1 hour of the day. That's my time. Especially then when I was training, that was my job. That gym was my office, and everything I'd worked for my entire life was right there. And so, you just had to, people hear that story. If they don't know me, they probably think I'm an asshole. But it's not that. It's you're so focused on something.
No, you're the opposite of that, actually.
And so you're so focused on something, and I protected my time viciously almost because that was my time. And I didn't let anything interfere with my training. And that's why I hated doing photo shoots. I hated social media, because social media, it's a different era now. Mm-hmm. But I just had to have a camera every day filming myself, drive me nuts because anything that distracted from my focus, I was going to kill it and get rid of it. So if that means you pulled out a cell phone in the middle of the workout, it's going to be a bad day for you.
Well, I think you were like me. You grew up in the Dorian era.
Yeah.
You grew up in the bodybuilding era. We didn't have these other categories. There was no other way to think about it. Nowadays, whether you're an influencer that's doing bodybuilding or if you're a men's physique guy or whether you're a classic physique guy, there's so many different avenues. And I feel like that's why a lot of the different people are like, hey, look, stop the ride. I want to get off.
Yeah.
because they don't want to. Before, there was only one destination. It was the Open Olympia. Then when they started coming in with the 202, then there was another backup, and then it went to 212. There was always that. But then when physique and then classic physique came out, then people could just say, hey, look, I don't want to go to the top of Mount Olympus. What I want to do is just be able to get off, do the scenic tour, get back on, and then go back down the hill.
Yeah.
And before, it was like, it didn't matter if you wanted to be a bodybuilder back in the day, you had to train like you wanted to beat Ronnie Coleman. Because Ronnie Coleman,
that was the standard.
That was the standard. And before that, it was Dorian Yates.
Yep.
And those are the ones that are the most powerful, influential people in bodybuilding in those 2 decades. And I feel that what really happened at that point was the amount of that intensity that people got to see with the Yeah Buddy training was there. Do you feel like you had a similar style to Ronnie with training?
Yes and no. I think me and Ronnie did a seminar last year together, and I said somebody asked us about the training, and I said, Ronnie, I'm gonna borrow a quote from you, and I said, Ronnie, they asked Ronnie this question one time. They said, how do you describe your training? He goes, I lift the maximum amount of weight I can lift for the maximum number of reps I can lift. I rest and repeat, and that kind of summed it up. I mean, I grew up with Brian training us, and like I said, the first couple of shows I trained with Ronnie when I was a kid, and it was you didn't ask questions. I saw what they did. They lifted heavy as they could lift, and they did it as many times as they could lift. They go beyond failure when possible with a spot or a drop set or whatever, and then rest and repeat. And you trained your ass. You lifted basically till you couldn't lift no more, and you didn't leave nothing in the tank. If you stopped and you didn't hit failure, they're looking at you like, why you quit? And that's how I learned, and it worked. And there's no substitute for hard work. There's this kind of a trend now in modern bodybuilding of like, why you lift so heavy? Why you train so hard? Dude, why would I ever? My thing was I never want to get beat because somebody outworked me. I can't control who somebody else does, how they diet, how they look, and that stuff. But I could control me, and I learned from a very young age. If I could outwork everyone around me, I could win. I could beat guys that were way more gifted than me.
Yep.
Because I knew I could be 100% dedicated to my nutrition, and I could out train them in the gym.
Yeah, and I would bring that up a lot because I felt like you were the standard when it came to that. You were the 75% of the genetics, but you were 100% of the work. And where a lot of people had 100% of the genetics, but they weren't willing to put in even 50% of the work. And you were doing whatever you could to make up for any genetic deficiencies when it came to your shape. And you would beat a lot of dudes way, way better than you because you were willing to make sure that you wouldn't leave any ounce on that table. Everything was going to be covered. And that's why I tell a lot of athletes, I don't have, they'll complain nowadays because it's the complaining generation. Yeah. And I'm sorry if you guys fall in the complaining generation, but if you're in your 20s or early 30s, you're in the complaining generation. And what happens is you try to find a reason why to puss out. And I feel like I want to get into that because you're the working man's bodybuilder. You worked. You ended up having, you were a sponsored athlete. You did well at the shows. You still worked. You still had companies. You still had athlete endorsement deals. You had all of the different things because you never took anything for granted. Even now, at 48 years old, you still have endorsement deals. You still have GASP. You still have other things that you're doing. And you don't take anything for granted. And I feel that nowadays, everybody wants everything handed to them. And even when you won, you still hustled. And I feel like that is a part of your personality and your character and your work ethic that a lot of people just don't understand nowadays. Do you feel like that was just put upon you through your upbringing? Was that a gym, being a part of that community? Where did you get that work ethic?
I think you become the man you are from your life experiences. I think your childhood upbringing has a big influence on that. And I think it's how you look at it, right? I mean, if you grow up with an abusive father, there's 2 outcomes. You become just like him and become abusive yourself, or you look at that and you become the exact opposite. Say, I'm not living like that. I'm not going to put my family through that. So I think that's how life. I think that's your childhood and your upbringing shapes you a lot as a man, and depending on how you cope with and deal with those, how you look at it, right? You can look at this half full or look at it half empty.
Right.
So I chose to look at it as half full and not half empty. And I grew up very, very poor. When my father left us, we had nothing. I mean, nothing. Me and my mom lived in a car for a minute, and you know, she got a job at a fast food restaurant. I went to work at a car wash until we get enough together to get a place. And I remember growing up like that, and I was so mad because my father put us in that position. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I will never put my family through this. And you know, so when I was 18 years old and I won the teen nationals, I remember I was driving. I got home. At the time, I was the first person in Dallas-Fort Worth to win a national title. Granted, it was a teenage title, but you know, Ronnie hadn't done it. He was about to start winning world titles, but he hadn't done it yet, and hadn't won a national title. And I drove from my house to Metroflex, and I planned my entire career out. I said, you know what, I'm going to be a pro bodybuilder, and I'm going to be successful at it. And I said, I had short-term, medium, and long-term goals. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go to school, get a degree. And I said, I'm going to start a business because, as any pro athlete knows, you have a very limited amount of time you can actually do good if you make it to the top of your chosen sport. Right. Then it's over. Then you've got a lot of living left to do after that. And I was under no illusion. Pro bodybuilders don't make pro basketball money. Right. So I just stuck to it, and I was determined. There was no backup plan. I have no rich grandparents or rich parents or anything. It was sink or swim, and I was not going to fail. And I told myself that when I was 18. I'm like, I don't care what I have to do. I will not fail. And you know, I went to that gym, and you know, hard work, I was used to it. And life ain't easy, man. And I think that's something this generation, our society's gotten so soft ever since that Depression era generation. They call it the greatest generation. You know, had the Depression, then the war, and you know, so you had lost 2 decades almost of sacrifice, suffering, and pain. And you know, our grandfathers came back from that war and said, you know, we don't want our family to live like that. And so they built this country, and they built it. And every generation has got softer and softer. Modern conveniences, life in general. People think they have it bad here. They don't have it bad here. Right. You travel the world like I have. Yes. I've seen poor people. We don't have poor people here in this country. If you're living under a bridge, most of those people have addiction, you know, drug, alcohol problems, or mental issues. Because if you want help, you'll get help.
Yes.
You just got to ask. And so I think that 20, 30-year-old generation has gotten so soft. Let me tell you something, guys. Nobody owes you a damn thing. All right? But you can have anything you want to if you're willing to put the work in. But you got to be willing to put the work in and make sacrifices. Nobody does nothing great without sacrifices. And if you don't want to make those sacrifices, you ain't going to do nothing great. It comes down to that. You got to put the work in. And hard work is hard. And if you've never done hard work, it's a shock to some people. You know, I think when you go through tough times as a kid, it prepares you as an adult and a man to work even harder. And it's not such a shock to you when you try something and fail. Well, guess what? Go back, pick yourself up, and try harder.
Do you feel like your mom was a big piece of making sure that you wanted to go forward in bodybuilding, or was she hesitant in the beginning? Because you hear about a lot of family members, especially when we start as teens. I started as a teen, you started as a teen, about how important it is, or sometimes you have to go away from the family loves that, you know, if they don't love the fact that you're bodybuilding, it could be a detriment and it can create a lot of friction. Was your mom more in, you know, in the, yeah, I want to see you do well as a bodybuilder, or was she kind of like, was it different?
My mom was incredible. Best person I've ever known. Honest to a fault, hardworking. And, you know, as you get older, you realize it's the sacrifices she made, you know, to make sure I had enough and raised me. You know, raising a teenage boy, you know, by yourself is not easy. It wasn't easy then. It is easy now, you know, for a single parent. You know, but she made sure I had everything. I didn't have everything I wanted by any means, but she, you know, she worked her butt off and made sure I had everything I needed. And she was hard. And, you know, sometimes as a kid, when your parents are hard on you, you hate them, right?
Yeah.
You get older, and I'm so glad she was. And she kept me from going down the wrong path and kept me straight and narrow. And, you know, she was a Christian, and she put those values in me and gave me a guideline, gave me a moral compass to live my life by. And I'm forever grateful to her for that. And I think a big reason I turned out the way I did was because of her.
People don't realize how important it is to have those family members to really support you and how you're going to be able to pay that back forward. Because if you don't have that, it doesn't mean you become bitter. You may have to separate yourself if you don't have a supportive parent, but it doesn't mean they don't believe in you down the road. It just means at that time, it might be something you might have to go prove yourself to some degree. And then you got to be able to come back again, because they're not always going to agree with everything that someone does.
Now, to answer your question about whether she was supportive of bodybuilding or not, she didn't know what it was. When I did that first show, I didn't even tell her. I just went and I came back and I had all this pro tan stuff on me. She's like, what the heck? I said, I had this big, huge trophy. Remember they used to give out those trophies?
Yeah,
like
the tall
5
ones?
foot tall or something. And she's like, I go, I won this bodybuilding contest, Mom. And she was so like, it's like her feelings were hurt that I didn't tell her. And I'm like, because she didn't really understand it. Because when I told her I had to eat chicken and rice, she made fried chicken and or chicken potatoes. She made fried chicken and mashed potatoes. I'm like, Mom, I can't eat that. Well, you said you can eat chicken and rice. You eat this your whole life. What's wrong with it? I'm like, never mind. I'll cook it myself. And because she didn't understand, she's country girl, just like I was a country boy. And, this whole bodybuilding thing, she didn't understand it. But she saw how hard I worked, especially being in high school, and how dedicated I was. And, she saw me when I come back from the workouts, how exhausted I was, and, how strict I was on my diet and the cardio. I'd get up at 5 a.m. doing cardio, and this is a teenage boy in high school. And she's like, she didn't understand it, but she supported it because she understood, okay, he's doing something positive. He's winning, and it's keeping him out of trouble because, you train for contests. You're not going out. You're not staying out late. You're not drinking. You're not doing all these things. So I stayed very, I was determined to win. And so after she kind of understood it more, she was my biggest fan. She came to every show, and up until her health got to a point where she couldn't. And when she passed away, she had this big cedar trunk. And I remember opening it up. We're going to clean out her house, and I bought her a house in South Lake, and bought her a new car and bought her a house in South Lake. She never had anything new or nice, and so I opened this trunk up. Every magazine, every article, newspaper, whatever it was, she had, and she'd gone through every one, and every advertisement, every article, she put like a little Post-it note, and had everything marked, and for my entire 15-year career.
That was awesome,
So,
man.
pretty cool.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that it's so important to be able to go back and reflect on those things, because sometimes we get a little bit focused on things going forward that we don't realize who helped us in journey on the way there. Do you feel like right now, with the current state of bodybuilding, how do you look at it with all the divisions and everything else? You see it as being an evolutionary thing, or was it bound to happen with all these divisions, or do you feel like it's something else? Because you're also a promoter, you're also an entrepreneur. I mean, how do you see it?
It's changed completely, from the 90s when I started to now. Back in the 90s, we had 2 divisions, bodybuilding, men's and women. That was it. I think it had to happen for the sport to survive. As a promoter, having all these divisions shows my show in Houston, we've had over 650 competitors just in the NPC portion, and back in the day, if you had...
When's the next show?
I've got Better Bodies Classic, April 6th. I've got the Branch Run Classic, Denver, May 11th, and then my Houston show, June 24th next year. So as a promoter, I love all the divisions because you get so many more people involved, and it reaches such a broader slice of the population that can participate, because not everybody wants to be a 250-pound pro bodybuilder. Right? I mean, not every girl wants to be a pro bodybuilder chick. That's why you have bikini and you have wellness and physique and all these different divisions. And I think that's a good thing, I said, because depending on what your body type is, depending on what you want to look like, there's a division that appeals to a lot of people. And I think it's, I see all the time, I have different events at my show, and I see a lot of powerlifters, CrossFitters, things like that. They watch the show, and next year or two, I see them on stage competing because they see something, they see a division, they're like, oh, I didn't know about this. And they start watching it, and they're like, wow, I want to do this. And it brings more people into the sport. It's changed, definitely. Like we were talking about the mentality, I think it's changed because you went from just having bodybuilders, and now you've got, men's physique and classic and all these things. It's a little different mentality. But I think it's brought so many more people into the sport. I think that's a good thing overall.
Yeah, I do too. I think that it gives the ability to bring a entry-level type of physique and still compete. You don't have to turn around and say, okay, I got to look like I'm going to be top 5 at the USA or the Nationals before I step on stage. Because we would always have that mentality, right? We were always like, cover up, don't show anything, get to the next level, try to crush it, then get to another level. There was like all these qualifiers, and it was like Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 before you get to Nationals. There was all these different divisions that, there were like basically levels. And then you get into a pro qualifier. And USAs, there used to be 1 overall card, and then at the Nationals, you could get a pro card by winning your division.
5, I think. Right?
Yeah, back then.
6. So, I hope you guys heard that. Back in the day, as a guy, you had 6 opportunities to turn pro. 6 pro cards a year for the entire nation. So the flip side of that was when you won, you were good. And you were good enough to be a pro.
And remember how we used to know every single pro? It didn't matter if it was even girls.
When I turned pro, there was 190 pros in the world.
In the world?
Actively.
Men and women?
Yeah.
Wow.
Actively. Of course, there was, retired ones.
Sure.
But it was 190 active pros in the world when I turned pro.
Yeah, and there's probably 10 times that.
They give out almost that many pro cards at the Masters Nationals.
Yeah.
So a lot more opportunities out there.
There's a lot more opportunities, a lot more shows. That's why they did it. And now, with taking it to that, let's talk a little bit about Jim Mannion, because I want to touch on this, because you've been around for so long that poses a question. Do you feel that as we've progressed, Jim, Tyler, now Tyler, his grandsons, did some videos that I thought were very, very good on social recently about breaking down what you and I don't always have the time to explain to people of what they see on stage. We had a Texas Pro here 2 weeks ago, okay? Right where you're sitting, we had Andrew Jacked, and we also had Hunter Labrada. And I feel that many people didn't and still don't understand the criteria for all these divisions, because sometimes it just goes back down to their favorites, right? But they don't really know how to assess it. Did you see the video that Tyler did? I don't know if you got a chance to see it or not. Okay, he did a really good job. We'll put a link here on the video. Breaking down the different divisions. He talked bikini, open bodybuilding, 212, and talking about symmetry, conditioning, being able to really break it down. Because I feel like what it turns into is, well, why did Branch place top 3 at this show? Or why did, they don't realize it's a combination of size, separation, fullness, conditioning, top to bottom, left to right, all of these things. And I feel that now with the internet, you're always going up against that extra man on the field, which is versions of yourself. Happened with Phil as well, right? Where they would always say, okay, was he as good as he was in, when he turned pro? I mean, when he won his first Olympia? Was he as good as when he was in 2013? Was he as good as when he was at the Arnold in 2010? You're always going up against that with the new internet generation. And you got people sitting there critiquing you, circling body parts, doing this and that. What do you think about that now? Because we didn't have that back in the day.
I think people don't understand the criteria. And I think some people, like you said, they like a certain body type, or they have a fan or favorite. We all got favorites, right? I mean, I had my favorites, coming up that I thought they're.
Who was your favorite?
My favorite? I had two. I'll give you 3 answers. I thought Rich Gaspari was a favorite of mine because of, not so much because of his physique, because of his work ethic.
Okay.
I thought Dorian was incredible. Once I understood the criteria, and if you ever saw Dorian compete in person, I mean, you see him in pictures. He didn't photograph well.
Right.
If you ever saw him in person competing, he was devastating.
Yes.
I mean, he walked out on stage and he's beating guys like Flex and Kevin and Sean that had these incredible, beautiful physiques. When he stepped out, it was like
wow factor.
Wow it's factor. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Dorian, and then I got to read about him, how he trained, and I'm like, I can relate to this. He trains in a dirty little dungeon just like I do. He ain't the most genetically gifted as far as shape and all that goes, but this dude is a freaking beast, man. Can't nobody touch him.
Right.
And that I related to, and probably more than anybody. And then of course Ronnie. Ronnie was just, in my opinion, the greatest bodybuilder of all time, and I just had the privilege to be there and witness the ride, witness the whole ride in first person, and it motivated me because I saw what he was doing, and I'm at the same place doing the same workouts basically, and I'm like, work for him, it'll work for me, and so that was kind of cool, very cool actually. But I think people, number one, they don't understand the criteria. Number two, some people don't have an eye for it. I see it all the time. I see people, they think they know what they're looking at, and I'm like, no, that's not right. And, so they don't understand what the judges are actually looking for and looking at sometimes. And I think if they did, then they would understand some of the decisions that are made,
right?
Because you have to take your personal biases out of it,
right?
Just like the Texas Pro, I've known Hunter Labrada since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. I've known his father since 1992. And so, of course, I'm cheering for Hunter, but you have to sit back and pull yourself out of it and say, okay, objectively, who is better? Right. And, Hunter faded that last, you were there at the show.
I was there.
They compared him, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times in a row.
Yes, they did.
And Hunter faded. And as soon as he faded, I looked at Brett and I was like, it's a wrap. He goes, yep. And, but I can do that because I know what the criteria is.
Brett Wilkins.
Yeah, Brett Wilkins.
Okay.
Yeah, he was sitting next to me. And
Another really good pro,
yeah,
by the way.
really good guy. And I was like, as much as I wanted Hunter to win,
Yeah.
Andrew got him, and it was super close. But he faded in that last comparison, and as soon as he did that, I was like, I knew.
Yep.
And so I think that's where people don't understand what the criteria is. Dorian, like I said, is the best example of it because didn't look good in pictures really, compared to how he looked in person. And if you were there in person at any of those Olympias, it was a wrap.
Yeah, I didn't get to see him at the Olympias. I got to see him a week after when he guest posed in San Francisco. So he had a buddy that his name was Gary Gideon, and he would guest pose for him at San Francisco. And it was about 30, 40 minutes away from where I lived. And it was all in his reign of being Mr. Olympia. And I remember seeing him in 93, 94, right after the Olympias. And he still had his pro tan on. And we're talking about Dorian here. And a week after the show, you look better than you do at the show sometimes because you're still in shape, especially if you might have over-dieted a little bit.
You're relaxed.
Yep. You got relaxed. You're going in there, you're fuller, 10 pounds, 12 pounds fuller on a big frame like that, 5'10", 260 plus pounds, 265 pounds, and just full. And he would come out, and it was like, you're just like blown away at the proportions.
Yeah.
And he would come out, and he would just hit a front lat spread, and it was just like lights out, game over. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, this was back when, and I've told this story many times, when I used to call Golds every hour. Hey, the results come out for the Olympia? The Golds, because there was no internet.
You didn't know, right?
No, there was no internet. And I didn't want to wait 3 months till Flex Magazine tells you who the winner was.
If you didn't know somebody at the show, you had to wait until the magazine came out. It was crazy. That's what this younger generation doesn't understand. It's not this as it happens stuff.
No.
I mean, the Olympia, you had to wait for the magazines to come out unless you knew somebody who went to the show.
Yeah, you went to the show, or you did what I did, which I would just constantly call. And then my dad would get pissed because he'd see the phone bill, and it was long distance. And he's like, what is this phone number in Venice you keep calling? And I was like, yeah, man, I called like 10 times till I finally found out the results. And they're like, first place this, Dorian Yates, second place this, and third place that. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, man, I'd write down the whole thing. Sorry, man, thanks. But I would call 10 times, and they're like, call back in an hour. We don't know the results yet. Because, like, who do you call? There's no internet. There's no Google. There's none of that shit.
You didn't know.
No, there was no way of knowing. And then, like I said, I didn't want to wait 3 months till the magazines come out. And then the other thing was that Flex Magazine, which had basically the best photographers to cover the show, they would only show the best pictures. Mm-hmm. Not like it is now where every angle you have 20 photographers from the side angles of when guys are breathing out and people are turning around doing things and then posting it up on the internet within seconds of the show starting. And then people are, circling body parts and doing this. So, this guy's leg is this way, or this guy's calf looks like it's he's got some muscle strain, whatever it is. In those days, and I believe that's another reason why Dorian got to continue to win, even with a torn bicep, because there was only a front double bicep that was affected, and that's all you saw. You didn't see all of the over and over repetitive nature of the show that more people would pick you apart like a vulture, like they do online now.
Last year he had a torn bicep and torn tricep, and
that's right.
It was very, very obvious, and like I said, I'm a huge Dorian fan, but that one was questionable because I'm like, all right, this dude's symmetry shot. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, his condition is blowing everybody away, his density, separation, all that. But his symmetry, he has half an arm.
Right.
And that one I didn't really agree with. I thought Flex should have got him on that one. But those other ones were just...
Well, you got a chance to go train with Dorian, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I trained with him at Temple Gym several times. And so that was pretty cool, man. I got to go there. And
how was that? Was that something where, was it everything that you thought it was going to be?
Pretty much. Yeah, I remember going there. All the stuff in the video, Blood and Guts, is all there. Nothing really changed. And this was 2011. I just won the Arnold Classic. I went the next week to Britain, won the British Grand Prix. We drove up to Birmingham, and Parabinal was there, captured the whole thing on film. And I took one of my favorite pictures of my entire career. I'm standing right there where Dorian did in his underwear and all that. And I was taking some pictures as he's standing behind me. So that was pretty cool. And I got that picture. It was pretty... you always have those pictures you like.
Yeah.
And that was a cool one. I remember I hadn't got that picture, and Perry was showing it to me. I was like, I think I finally arrived. So I made it. So that was cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, you know, like I said, I was also a very, very big fan of Dorian. Still am. You know, him and I talked a couple of months ago about doing a podcast, and we started going off on the side. Like, you know, he was talking about training and prep and how things are different now. Mm-hmm. And then he was asking me, because he was like, hey, what do you think? And I go, it's very different. You know, I go, if you probably would have maybe possibly leaned into doing higher volume on certain body parts, then maybe he would have been less likely to tear it. And that kind of goes with you. Do you feel like, how did your style versus Dorian Yates' style differ? Did you end up doing your training but with him when you trained with him, or was he using high intensity Menser type of principles when he trained you?
He actually did more of my style.
He did.
Yeah, he picked some of the exercises, but he kind of did more of my style.
Did he train with you, or
he trained with me?
Oh, he trained with you.
Okay, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I ain't training with you, bro.
So
not yet. Give me another year in my new gym. But
he was probably 250 pounds or something at that point, and back in 2011, and you know, still looked good.
Yeah,
and obviously wasn't a 300-pound monster that
he was at his peak.
Yeah, at his peak, but I mean, he was still getting it, you know. And I remember thinking, man, I wish this dude was in his prime. This would be fun, and it'd be a good battle.
That's cool. So he basically just trained with you, and then you guys ended up doing your training. Did he say anything about slowing down? Because again, I've seen you train, and you train in a very barbaric method, right? I call it the branch barbaric training system. You like take the weight and you move it, right? Did you feel like he was trying to slow it down? Because he definitely is more about control. Not only is he about high intensity training with doing only one working set, even though that a lot of people are like, oh, he only did one set for every body part. He'll even tell you it was usually 1 to 2 working sets and usually a couple of warm-ups. So it really came out to be 4.
Yeah.
But when you were working with him and you trained with him, did he say anything about slowing it down versus kind of your current pace and tempo?
I think maybe one of the exercises we're doing biceps or something, and he was like, hey, man, slow it down, feel more than negative or something. We did it that way. So, I mean, I'm gonna put something out here. I never have told anyone to train the way I do.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at my entire career, all the interviews I've done.
Yeah.
I've never told anybody to do what I did. Now, if you can take something I do and incorporate it into your program and you get better from it, that's a win. All right. And another thing is, I used to powerlift, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have perfect form because you're being judged on your form. Right. I mean, I bench pressed 585 pounds raw before, right? I could bench press 500 pounds for like 5 to 7 reps any day of the week when I was competing with a pause and a lockout. All right. When I do chest, for example, I don't lock it out because it kills my elbows. You know, if I lock out, my elbows kill me for the next 3 or 4 days.
Right.
So I wouldn't lock out. And all bodybuilding is getting as much blood into the muscle as possible, working the muscle to failure, rest, and repeat. That's all it is. And so all these internet people out there and the internet experts and the Insta-famous people, dude, all it is, it's called hard-ass work. You lift, you get as much blood into the muscle as you can until you can't lift it anymore. You rest and recover, plain and simple. And so my other thing is, they say, oh, you had injuries. Well, first of all, I never got hurt in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I'm going to use my boy Dorian as an example. His form was, according to textbook, perfect, right?
Right.
He tore muscles in half with his perfect form.
He did.
So explain that one to me, if my form is such a detriment.
Yeah, we actually talked about that a little bit with me and Dorian, and he asked me, he goes, what do you think that is? And I'm going to leave it for him when we get him on the podcast, but I do feel that there were certain things that the athletes were doing back then, supplement-wise, that could have also been a detriment to a lot of the muscles getting torn. But I also feel that with Dorian, we also talked a little bit about he wouldn't back it down. And I feel that if we had him on the podcast, I would ask him this, because again, we were on the phone a couple months ago, and most people back down 10, 15% the last couple of weeks. I'm not talking about like cut it down 50%. Yeah. I'm talking about 10 to 20% possibly. And I feel that he was mentioning about possibly, like, if he had to go back, that would have been something that he would have thought possibly of changing. But I'll leave that for another podcast. Did you do that? Did you feel like, did you at the very end, the last couple weeks, like back it down?
100%.
Okay,
I always
you did.
backed it down.
Okay.
I think that's something I learned as a kid. They taught me.
Right.
You know, Brian and all those guys are like, man, the last 2 weeks you need to back it down a little bit.
Right.
And I did. And that was something it just to me, it made sense. And, you know, but I'm going to leave you with this. If you're trying to be the best in the world at something, you better be willing to freaking take it to the extreme. I don't care what it is. All right. So look at every great champion, Dorian, Hany, even Jay. I mean, almost all the great champions that really took it to the extreme. Injuries are part of it. Look at football players. Look at basketball players. All these guys, the guys that really push it, getting hurt is a risk, right? I mean, would Hany have been Hany if he hadn't lifted the way he did?
He said he would never. He wouldn't change.
Never change, and he told me the same thing.
And I'm assuming you would say the same thing. You wouldn't change anything.
I wouldn't change nothing.
Right.
I love the way I had the time of my life. I still love working.
You still train the same way.
So I do. I just don't train as heavy.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you still. I still see you train, and you still train like an animal.
So, you know, it worked for me, and like I said, I've never told anybody to do what I do. But if you can take something I do and incorporate it into your system, and it's a win, it works for you, then it's a win.
What do you think, in your opinion, caused Ronnie's injuries?
You know, Ryan could probably talk to this more obviously than I could.
Yeah.
From what I know, he.
And I'm only asking you because you had seen him so often, and I think you trained lots of times around the same time. You'd see him train almost daily, right? Do you think, you know, what's your opinion on that?
First of all, Ronnie was super strong, and Ronnie wouldn't let nobody beat him in the gym. I can tell you right now, the only person in my entire life I never beat in a workout was Ronnie. So we tried training.
What about
together.
Johnny? Can Johnny hang with you?
Yeah, Johnny's strong as hell. Johnny's tough.
Who's stronger, you or Johnny?
He can beat me in deadlift. I can beat him in chest, legs. If we're doing weight, he could probably out max me.
Really?
On a squat.
I mean, that's interesting because your legs are a lot bigger than Johnny's.
Correct, but
he was stronger.
He could out max me on a squat. Not by a lot, but he could get me. Now if we're doing reps, I could get him. And legs. So man, it was Johnny's no joke, man.
I know he's
all that stuff about world's strongest bodybuilder is true. I'm telling you, I lived it for 22 years. And you know, if you came to the gym and you didn't feel good and you didn't feel like working, you was about to get your ass whooped. Because you better step it up because he's going to bring it every single time. The dude was never late. He never missed a workout. He never complained. And every day we went to the gym, it was a war. And, you know, when the show was over, we wouldn't train together because we'd always say, hey, we're going to take it easy, you know, for a couple of weeks after the show. That shit never happened. So what we finally started doing was we just wouldn't even train together for like a month after a show. So we could like take some downtime. And otherwise, because we trained together, it was just like natural chemistry. It was going to freaking go from 0 to 100 immediately.
So you basically backed it down the last couple of weeks. And just out of numbers for the audience, how much would that back down happen? Would it be a 10, 20, 30%? How much in weight or volume?
Probably 15, 20%.
15, 20%.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't want to go too light because, you know, you still want to keep your fullness and size, but I would back it down 15, 20%.
Would you change the number of reps at all? Would those go up or down? No, just brought it down 15 to 20%. Yeah. And then when you were doing that, did you feel that part of it was because your body fat was so low that you just wanted to not risk injury?
Yeah, you don't want to pull something. Your body fat's low. And if your body fat's that low, you will get injured. You hurt a joint or
because you're so dry.
Correct. And so it was just to me, it was common sense to do that. So.
And then after the show, would you turn around? Did you believe in these rebounds? Did you do any of that? Or was that something where you just more did? I know Ronnie would always take a couple months off, and he wouldn't even go in the gym after the Olympia. Were you doing the same thing, or were you just doing kind of a more back down workouts?
So I'd always took a week off for the most part. Following a big show, I'd take a week, maybe 2 weeks off. Then one time I took a month off. To me, that was too long. I like to train. So usually a week or two out of the gym, then I'd go back and start training. And I'd go, 60, 70% for the first week. Next week I'd kick it up. And usually after about a month, me and Johnny were back in it and training hard again, depending on what the next competition was. So, but you got to have some downtime. I think the one thing I would have done different of all my training was I would give myself more rest and recovery time. I think the longer my career progressed and the more things I did for active recovery, like, muscle activation therapy, the chiropractor, deep tissue massage, other things, all these things aid you in recovery. And I became more in tune with that towards the end of my career. And looking back on it, I think I would have put more emphasis on recovery. And I think that's one of the reasons Dorian was able to train the way he did and have a career. I think his career would have been much shorter than it was had he trained more frequently. But, he trained, 3 or 4 days a week. something like that, these super intense workouts, and then he'd rest. And I think because of that, it enabled him to train.
So when you're saying you would change it and create more recovery, would you do more rest days during the week? Or would you just, when you're saying that, do you mean that you would just take more time in between training cycles?
More time in between training cycles. Okay. You know, maybe it's like a schedule. You train 2 days, take a day off. Train 2 days, take a day off, or something like that. I think having more downtime would definitely aid you. So that is if you train hard.
You said it aids you?
Yes.
Got it.
It would help you with your recovery, I think.
Okay. Yeah, no, and these are things that, looking back at a long, illustrious career, those are things that I think the people would definitely take away from, especially those that are really in the middle of it right now. They're at their peak. They're training hard.
And that's hard to do when you're in the middle of it, in the fight, because back in the day, if you'd have told me, hey, we're going to train 2 days, take a day off, train 2, take a day off, I'd have been like, hell no, I'm training. Because you're in the fight, you want to train, right? So it's a hard thing to do. I think, to me, that would be harder than saying I'm going to train 7 days a week. I'd be much more willing to say back then.
That's haughty. That's haughty. Literally, haughty has to train 7 days a week. Last year, we were able to get him to 6 days, and we got him to back off to because sometimes he would train twice a day, and we backed it off to once, and he was able to hold his size better. He was able to get stronger. He was able to hold his strength longer. But it was like a boxing match with him and I, because he's so used to doing what he does. Even on Instagram, where I watch some of the things he does, and I'm just like, okay, bro, like, I'm not there. I can't control it. So I've tried to
it's better to be that way than the other way.
Yeah.
But I think, going back to what I said, I think, I don't know Hany that well, but if you have enough rest and recovery, you're going to be bigger and stronger.
Yes.
And you're going to feel better. Yeah. And your workouts are going to be better.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you guys come from a warrior mentality. And if you're not at war and taking heads, every rep, every set, every workout, what happens is there's a bit of anxiety because you're like, I'm leaving too much on the table. I don't want to be a pussy.
100%. If I couldn't go in there and go to war and destroy everything, I'd soon not even go.
Even though long term, that I got to take that day off because I need to rest from that crazy leg day, that crazy back day. But because of the fact that you have that mentality, it's really hard to be able to sit at home and say, I got to take some time off and let my body rest, even though you know that it's going to be better for you.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I remember one year I was training Metroflex, and Brian's wife called and said, hey, there's a tornado heading right for you guys. And I'm doing legs. And it was just me and Brian. And in the gym, everybody else had already hauled ass. It's storming like crazy. You've seen some of these storms. We get here, these big giant hailstones, all this stuff. And the doors are open. And I'm getting ready to squat. I think I had 400 or 500 pounds on the bar. And I get underneath the bar and I look up out the garage door and the dumpster's flying through the air. And Brian goes, what do you think? I go, what are we going to do, man? I ain't nowhere to go. I'm doing my set. And I took the weight off the rack and did my set. And but you just, it's that mentality of like, I don't care if the world's on fire. I'm working out. What are we going to do? Ain't nowhere to run and hide, so I'm going to do my set.
Yeah, and I think that's why your crew, I see it in MMA. You have certain gyms and clubs that are with a group of coaches. AKA with Javier Mendez, he works with Khabib, Kane, all of those, Daniel Cormier, and you see champions coming out of there, and you want to know why. I think part of it's the coaching, but part of it is that groupthink mentality of when you see everybody else go to the next level, then you go to that level too. So it's not just the individual, but it's the camp. And that's where I think you guys have that camp going. And when you see that happen in these little microcosms of gyms around the world, that camp mentality, because you see other people doing it and they're not pussing out, then it makes you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can too to represent, because that's what you're seeing.
100%. The most successful man I've ever known, he told me when I was 24 years old, he said, you surround yourself with successful people, it's contagious. You surround yourself with losers, that's contagious too. And, I was so blessed and fortunate to walk into that gym at that time around those group of guys, because it's contagious 100%. You're around a bunch of people with that mentality and that no quit, never surrender mentality and win no matter what. You see how hard they work, and then you see it working. You're like, that's what I'm going to be. And you do the same thing. And then, me, I try to take it to a whole nother level. I'm like, because I wasn't the most blessed guy in the world, but so I was like, all right, I got to figure out a way to beat these guys. And I learned very early on, if I could just outwork all of them, I could beat them. And then I just reinforced what I was doing.
Well, nowadays, I think the opposite is happening more often, where you have group victim mentality. Mm-hmm. everybody wants to sit there and bitch about what it is that they think that that's owed to them, instead of for them to actually be able to belly up and be able to do something that's going to break them out of that plateau. But everybody just wants to play the victim and say how horrible life is.
Back in my day, I'd have made them a victim.
Say that again.
I said, back in my day, I would have gladly made them victims.
That's what makes you you. That's it. That's it. That's what makes you you, Branch. I mean, nowadays, I feel that so many people are constantly complaining. And like Ronnie used to say, quit complaining. Just go ahead and do the work.
That's it.
And now, so many people. Where do you see the sport in regards to the different divisions, the champions? I mean, how do you see things with all the divisions, not just open?
I'll start with the open division. I think we finally have a group of guys. I think we had a few years there that there was I think we didn't have depth in the open division. I think now we have some of these guys that have come up and developed, and I think it's exciting. Last year was probably one of the best Olympias I've seen in a long time. With Derek and Hany and Nick and some of the other guys up in the top 5 and 6, it became very competitive again. Some great physiques. Hunter this year, he brings it in. I mean, he could be a force to be reckoned with. Andrew Jack, he's going to be up in the top. So I think Samson, the Samson we saw at the Arnold, I mean, he can definitely do some damage because he's massive.
Yep.
So I think the depth is definitely coming back to the open division, which I'm super happy about. I think I could back that up with for the first time in history, the most popular person in the sport is not Mr. Olympia. It's a classic guy. It's C-Bum. So that's the first time in the history of bodybuilding the most popular guy is not Mr. Olympia. And I think that goes to the fact that we didn't have the depth at that open division that now we're starting to get back. So I think that's very encouraging. I think classic bodybuilding is great. I do think it's hurt the open division because I think most of the most gifted physiques now are in classic.
Yeah.
I mean, you take C-Bum and put 30 pounds on him. He probably could win Mr. Olympia. Now that's 30 pounds is easier said than done, right? As we all know. But I mean, look at all the top 5 guys. You put 25, 30 pounds on them. They're probably going to be some of your top guys at the Olympia.
Yes.
Now you got to put the 25, 30 pounds on, which takes years. But I think classic, it's brought a lot more people into the sport. I think a lot of guys, a lot of girls look at that and they like it. They're like, damn, this looks good. And it does. I'm a meathead. I love the open freak dudes, but I think they're always going to be the ones that sell the tickets and put the butts in the seat at the end of the day. But I think classic is definitely added to the sport. Men's physique. When it first came out, I wasn't a fan for a simple fact. It was like, okay, you can't see your legs, dude. Where are your legs at, bro? I mean,
they used to call it mankini.
Yeah, I called it men's bikini back in the day.
Yeah.
So no disrespect, guys, but
well, it's evolved.
It's evolved, and the guys are much bigger now than they used to be.
Right.
And it's definitely coming to its own.
Right.
Become a very strong division, and I think it's more attainable. I think when people, especially at the local NPC level, then what they look at classic or especially the open division.
Yeah.
They look at that and they're like, I can do that, and so I think it's brought a lot of people into the sport, and I think a lot of those guys have since moved on to bodybuilding. Yes. And that was their stepping stone to get into the sport. On the women's side, I mean, you've got a division for just about every body type now.
That's right.
I think the newest division, wellness division, complements women's physiques very well. Most of the weight is from the waist down, glutes and quads and hams or something. And I think many women, they look at that and they're like, that's like the same type of body type that they have. Right. So they look at that and it looks good. The girls are beautiful, got great. I mean, the Miss Olympia, I always mispronounce her name, but she's a poster child for the Olympia. Yes. I mean, she's beautiful. She poses well, incredible physique. And, I think one of the best of all the champions, she might be her and C-Bone, probably the 2 best to represent the sport right now. With bikini, that appeals to a ton of girls. Guys like it. So huge addition to the sport. You've got figure. Figure has evolved tremendously from when my wife did fitness and figure. Looking at the girls now, they've gotten so much more muscular than they were back then. But once again, I think it's still a very popular division and very, very competitive. So that's added a lot more people to the sport. And of course, women's bodybuilding and women's physique. I think the women's physique is what bodybuilding used to be back in the day. Then
I could see that. I could see that from back in
like the Corey Everson
days.
Era, yeah. And so I think that's a lot of girls that like to train hard and want to be muscular. I think that's been very appealing to them. And of course, in women's bodybuilding, Jake brought that back from the Jake Wood that promoted Olympia brought women's bodybuilding back from the dead, and have that division for the girls that just want to say fuck it, and get big.
Well, and I think Jim, listening to his, not just the promoters, but the chairman and everybody within the organization, when he started layering in these different divisions, seeing that we can be able to create like a net for a lot of different types of physiques. So when you can level that in, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I think we could still add in a lower level men's division. I think we should eventually end up having, because everyone from the early era of men's physique has gotten much bigger. And that's why, because it's bodybuilding and there's no weight class. Now they're going to put a weight class on it. Tyler just, announced that a couple weeks ago. There's weight classes. They're going to be coming for men's physique. But I feel like they've gotten so muscular that we should at some point start a men's model division where it's like a weight class that's lower that we can have. On the West Coast, we have a lot of Asian bodybuilders and a lot of Filipinos, Chinese, and they're naturally, a lot of them structurally are smaller. Even Jeremy was, half Filipino, half white, and very great bone structure. But that look that he carried in the early years of men's physique has now morphed into the lot bigger guys now.
Much bigger.
Much bigger. Hence the reason why they're putting weight divisions on it. I still think that we can go back and add another division at some point that would be a starter division that could be that abs, like Brad Pitt with abs. I remember back in the day, I ended up doing an event here with at the Europa, and I was managing BSN, the BSN athlete program, and with your partner, Scott James, right? Scott James and Chris Ferguson. And I sponsored with Ed and Betty Pariso, which they were in charge of the Europa, a BSN model search. This is before men's physique.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when we did it and I signed the check to it and I was running BSN's athlete program, what I did was I sat down and I created a standard because I said, look, we're going after this type of look. And this is before men's physique had come out. Yep. And I see all the competitors, and back then they were wearing flip-flops because in the men's, because again, we had, this was just kind of like
board shorts and beach.
That's right. Look, it was a beach body, right? It was like a beach body. And they were muscular, but with abs, good looking, good tan on, board shorts. But again, they all had, these flip-flops on. And we did our call outs just like the NPC kind of does now, but it was like front. I think we did a quarter turn and then we did it to the back. And I was, judging it. And some of the guys that were judging with me, they're like, dude, we don't know what to look for. And I was like, just I'll take care of this. Right. Because they were like, what are we looking for?
What are we looking at? Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, hey, this is kind of where I would go by. And I ended up having the top three, did the top three call out. And you know who the winner was?
I have no idea.
Jason Poston.
Really?
Jason Poston.
Oh, wow.
Because it was here in Dallas. He's local to Dallas. Yep. Became an IFBB pro after that when they actually did come out with a division. Okay. Became an Olympian. And actually, I think he lives up by you.
He does. He lives up in Prosper.
Yeah.
I live in Prosper.
Yeah.
We actually graduated from the same high school.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yep.
Yeah. So, so Jason ended up was the winner, and so I did something right. Wow. But Jason was it.
So this model, how would it would they come out in shorts or how would
I think we should do is definitely do shorts. Have you ever seen the stuff they're doing in the Middle East, by the way?
I have.
Where they're doing it in suits?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a whole different animal, but which is hilarious because in Iran, and I speak Farsi, so I know what they're saying, right? And they're like, oh, this guy is handsome. You could see the suit that he had because they would have divisions where you would have to wear different outfits in the new divisions that they have in the Middle East.
Okay.
And so what they would do is it's a men's model division where you're wearing a suit and tie and you're walking out and they're wearing glasses and then they're doing call outs. And I don't think we need to go to that point, but I do think that going in, just like what we had early on in the men's physique
like
division.
The first 4 or 5 years of men's
exactly.
Physique. You just have to distinguish it somehow from.
Right. So the way I think you distinguish it is you have to have a lower weight class than the one we're having right now. So whatever one that they're putting together, and I don't even think that they've announced it yet, I would think down the road it would be a good idea because then somebody who's only been training for 1 or 2 years can compete. So all of the promoters would now have that huge influx that we used to have back in the day. So now that the divisions have gotten a bit seasoned, guys have gotten so much bigger that I do think it scares off a lot of competitors that are like, hey, I train, but I don't, that's a little scary for me.
Yeah.
That guy's a bit big. Because some of the guys were getting bigger than the men's classic because of the fact there was no weight division.
Yep.
So now that's why they're ratcheting up men's classic a bit, and then they're putting in beneath it weight classes for this men's physique division. But I do feel like this model physique would be really cool, because then somebody who's just trained for like a year, 6 months, if they got good genetics, they can go in there again, Brad Pitt with abs, because
I think you almost need height and weight.
Yeah,
Restrictions,
absolutely,
to keep it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
And then to kind of keep the proportions, yeah, and then we can turn around and do that. But then you have a wider net to bring them in, and then if they train hard, then they can move up, or they can turn around and say, hey, I really like this look. I'm going to try to maintain this beach body model look. But I feel like that's the thing. But again, some people are like, hey, should they do the suit round that these guys are doing in the different countries? No, I think that's a beauty pageant.
Yeah, I think it's a physique contest. So we
absolutely.
Don't
No,
need
it's not a modeling thing. It's not a, I'm going to go over like Giorgio Armani suit and arm. I think what this is just a entry level, so that you go, hey, this is kind of the look we're looking for. Again, a young Brad Pitt with abs. That's what we're going for. And then you have a really good proportions of height to weight, but lower than what we currently have. And I think down the road, and who knows, maybe you don't put it in the Olympia if you're worried about getting the thing too stacked for the Olympia, or maybe you wait a little while before you build it up like they did with wellness. I think they took a year or two. Yep. But I just think that it would be really good to bring in a lower entry point to go even wider, because if you do that, it just brings in more people.
Yeah, I agree
it
with
just
that.
brings
From a promoter standpoint, I totally get it.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you this:
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Olympia now being so many competitors?
I think it's too many.
I do too.
I think it's too many. I think it's too many, and let me tell you, it hurts things. Number one, it makes the show go long. Number two, I think it makes it economically very challenging for the Olympia, and I think that's why the Arnold has an advantage, because the Arnold pays for your invite. When you ask to get invited.
Just so everybody knows, the Arnold Classic, you have to be invited. You can't just go doing the show.
Right.
So they have to invite you.
That's right.
The Olympia you qualify for.
That's correct. And because of that, they turn around and they absorb the cost. Well, because there's so many qualifiers at the Olympia, meaning all around the world, you win, you're in. And then now you have, I think Chris was number 58, I believe, competitors, because the winner always comes out last in the division. And what happens is now the Olympia has to pay for 58 people. 58.
Just that one division.
That one division.
I think bikini was even more.
It could have been. It could have been, because there were so many. And you're looking at it going, okay, not to take away anything from everyone, but maybe if I'm the promoter of the Olympia and I'm the one that's in charge of finance, I'm going to say, hey guys, maybe what we should do is look at the top 15 or top 10, depending on the division. We're going to go ahead and pay your way. The other things you have to pay for. And then, so that's how we can budgetarily create 50, 60 people coming to the show. And then maybe there's going to be cuts. Remember back in nationals, we used to do cuts? Yeah. So what that means, guys, for those of you that are listening who haven't been to a show or just follow things online, we used to go to the USAs or the nationals, and you would have 40 guys in the heavyweight division. And out of those 40 guys, only the top 15 would be allowed to come back and do comparisons.
So what that meant, you might train 3, 4, 5, 6 months for this. You walked on stage for maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes, and you were done.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Come back. Try again next time.
Right. So that means that you're done. You don't even get to get called out with the top guys because you were cut, because you have so many people. They would just circle their top 15, and then your name would be red, and then you would stand on the side of the stage, and then they would bring you out in 3 groups of 5. And that's how it was done.
That's when I won. That's how it was.
Yep.
So it was, I don't know, I want to say like 42 in the heavyweight.
42 in your weight class.
Yeah, in my weight class. And I remember they bring us out and like.
Because I think you won nationals.
Yes. And they brought us out in groups of whatever, 8, 9, whatever it was.
Did you win the overall?
No, Johnny beat me. Johnny won the light heavyweights and he beat me in the overall.
And you won it in heavies.
I won the heavies.
That's right.
Yep. And
your training partner.
Yeah, my training partner.
Bastard.
So, he never beat me again. But,
Did he really never beat you again?
he beat me as an amateur. I never beat him. Every time we competed against each other, he beat me as an amateur.
Yeah.
He won the nationals overall, rightfully so. And then the next time we stepped on stage was New York Pro.
We got to get Johnny on this podcast, by the way.
Yeah, I wish he was here right now.
Yeah.
It would be good.
Yeah. Well, he's up the road. We'll just next time we're gonna have him come in.
Yeah, we'll have you cracking up the whole time. But yeah, we got stories. But
those international ones I got to hear about. The international stories I got to hear about.
Some of these stories will never make the light of day. But yeah, we had a lot of fun, man. I couldn't have asked for a better training partner and a friend. So man, we got to travel the world together. So had a blast. But yeah, he won the nationals, and then every time after that, I edged him out. So, but you know, I think we were the only duo that trained together, especially top level guys that trained together. And I don't think we ever had a disagreement in 20-something years.
It's amazing. He's such a good dude. Every time I see him,
they don't make him no better than Johnny.
No, Johnny's a great guy. When you guys ended up winning your pro cards, and you had 45 people in there, I mean, it was one thing. That was always the first thing that when I was coaching a lot of amateurs back then, it was like the first thing you're trying to do is make the cut. Mm-hmm. Then you're trying to move up on the call out, because you may end up in the third call out, but you could still end up getting moved up because they turned around and maybe overlooked you.
I saw it happen several times.
Yeah.
They'd get somebody in the third call out, and they'd take that person, they'd call out the first call out and put that person up there, and they'd end up in the top 5. So that happened a lot. And I saw the other thing happen. Sometimes I saw a couple times guys that were really good didn't make the cut and they got overlooked. Yeah. You know, because it happens.
Or what they do is they get puss face, right? Sourpuss, right? And they're sitting there with a shitty attitude. They're standing on the corner, gut hanging out, and then they're just and they were fidgeting, and they were just like having a tantrum.
Yes.
And you know what the judges do? Be like, F you, sit there.
Yep.
And you know what? That's what you deserve.
That's what you get.
That's what you get.
For you, when you're on stage, they told me when I was a kid, man, those guys, they said, man, when you're on stage, you fight the whole time. You stay flexed, you stay tight. That's right. And you smile, and you don't freaking relax or give an inch until it's over. And they were right. So, because I saw it sometimes, you get called out, and you're not always in the center. If they call out 4 or 5 guys, you don't have to be in the center to win. Usually you are. But I saw one time I won a show as an amateur, and I was on the end. And I'm thinking, damn, man, I stunk this up. I got like 4th or 5th. I won the show. So,
but they just had moved you over.
They just moved me over.
Right.
So,
yeah. And
you never know.
You never know. And when you look at this, when you look back, when you guys are competing, you guys got to never give up. That's a little piece of advice, because if they did overlook you, you can turn around and you stay tight. They're going to, 1 or 2 judges, maybe not the head judge, but one of the other judges is going to go reach over to the head judge and say, hey, I want to see so-and-so in that comparison next to the top 5. And then what will happen is if he ends up, looking at that, let's say it's Big Steve or Tyler, whoever, in the center, and the other judges are going, hey, so-and-so, so-and-so. Yep. They'll bring that person out, and then if it looks like he belongs, they're going to move him up. 100%. Because they're going to say, hey, look, these other judges might saw something I didn't. Let me go ahead and bring that back, because they're using a collective eye. It's not just always one person.
That's right.
And that's why you got to remember to always fight. Never give up. Never let your body get loose. Don't let your gut out. Don't have attitude on stage. Make eye contact. And if you sit there and like you have a temper tantrum, you deserve to get into the last call out.
That's it.
They'll just leave you there.
Yep.
And that's the way it is, because there is no more participation medals. That's all bullshit. And I feel a lot of people just feel like that they don't understand that you're always being looked at, even when you're off to the side. And it doesn't matter what division you're in. You got to make sure you stay tight.
Always.
So let me talk to you about diet real quick, because my readers, or I should listeners on this one, and back when we were writing for MD and we were doing a lot of those things, a lot of people wanted to know, how much do you eat now versus what you did before? And starting with the before first, when you're at your peak, did you work on macros, or did you work on just amount of calories thrown in?
I didn't know what a macro was back in the day. So I just counted protein, grams of protein, grams of carbs, and fat. And I really didn't even count calories. Okay. Because, I knew if I was getting the right number of protein, right number of calories.
How many meals?
Back when competing, 6, sometimes 7.
Off season?
Off season, 6.
How many ounces of protein?
8 ounces.
And were you doing a lot of beef?
I ate some beef. I ate mostly wild game.
I was going to ask you that because you're a big hunter.
Yeah, I hunt, and so I'd kill a buffalo every year, and up in Wyoming.
With your bare hands?
Hell no. But
this is a little bit of a joke, but we're going to go off on that in a second. But so when you were doing wild, like, did you care how much of it was coming from chicken versus fish, or was it just whatever you had in the fridge?
My personal opinion, and I think it's a bunch of BS, man. I don't think it matters if you're eating a buffalo or a chicken or a fish or something. I heard people say, "Oh, I have to get lean. I got to eat, fish or tilapia or something." I think that's a bunch of nonsense. If you're eating chicken,
I'm the one that came up with that, right?
What, you came up with that? Did you really? Well,
well, no, it's a little bit of a joke because I there was something about thinning of skin with fish, but the clarity was making sure that if you can digest the food, you can get more of it in. So what I would do is I would let my athletes like Jay in 2009 when you were up against him, we would do a lot of fish because you could be able to absorb it and then he would be able to eat again. But if he was eating a lot of chicken, he wouldn't be able to eat. Or if he was doing beef, he had to take longer in between meals. So it was really about the absorption.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I never had that problem.
Yeah. So there was that, and especially because Jay hated to eat. He literally, it was like he was not an eater. You know about that, right?
Off season, he didn't. I remember many times we'd be doing things together.
Yeah.
And I'm ordering like 2-3 meals and eating them. And he can't even finish one hardly.
Right.
I'm like,
he hated to eat.
He did eat.
He hated. It was one of the reasons why he was like, if I stop bodybuilding, the happiest moment is the fact I don't have to eat.
See, to me, that's crazy. I love to eat.
Yeah. He hated to eat.
Yeah. My problem is I had to pull the reins back to keep from eating too much.
Right.
And so I eat elk, venison, buffalo, a little beef, chicken, fish, eggs, and for my carbs, I liked white rice. I hate brown rice, and I'd have potatoes, usually white potato or sweet potato.
Okay. Were you a cream of rice guy or a oatmeal guy? Oatmeal.
I like cream of wheat, but that was usually off season.
Okay.
Pre-contest was usually oatmeal, and like most bodybuilders, I could eat the same stuff every day, all day. It doesn't bother me.
Because you came from the Ronnie generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like eat this.
Did you do barbecue sauce like he did?
No, I like ketchup.
Ketchup.
Yeah, I was a ketchup guy.
Sugar back then they didn't have the
sugar free. Yeah.
Yeah. Back then.
As I got close to the show, I'd scale it back and I'd cut it out. And that was a bad day when there's no more ketchup, man. So, but
would you do salmon?
Yeah, a little bit, not very often. Usually, as I got closer to the show, I didn't eat much salmon, and I eat it probably more now than I did then. I like salmon, but if I had to choose between a nice buffalo steak and a salmon, I pick the buffalo.
How much of your food were you hunting yourself?
Protein wise,
yeah,
probably 75%.
So you'd go out there, and what kind of hunting were you doing? Because I know you do everything from bow and arrow to.
Man, I hunt with anywhere from knives to catch, dogs and knives to catch, wild boars to bow hunting to rifle hunting to whatever, man.
Well, that's the story. So I came out to Ronnie to Metroflex, and I can't remember if it was. I think it was Brian, and there was a bunch of blood in the back, and it was like literally like somebody had just severed a body, and I was like, "What the fuck is that, Ronnie?" And that's back when I was training Alti. This is in the mid 2000s. And he goes, "Man, that's Brian and that's Branch." And I was like, "What do you mean? What the fuck are they doing?" And he goes, "Ask Brian." And Brian comes out and goes, "Hey, bro, what's going on?" Da-da-da. And Brian's always great.
Always in good mood.
Good mood. I go, "Brian, what's all that blood doing out there?" "Oh, we strung up a hog." I go, "I don't even know what the fuck that means. I'm from California." And he's like, "Yeah, man, we went over hunting." And I was like, "Oh, okay. What'd you use? Like AR, AK, what do you use?" He's like, "Branch just took the dog and knives." And they'll go, "What? As backup?" And he's like, "No. Tell the listeners what that meant."
So I'm assuming most of the listeners probably aren't country boys. So I grew up doing this stuff, and then Brian really got me into it. So there's a ton of wild boars, wild hogs in Texas. They're not native; they're invasive, right?
Right.
So that's not something that was a naturally occurring, species in North America. So consequently, I think there's several million of these things in the state of Texas, just in Texas, not counting everywhere else. And so they're devastating the crops. Like they do, tens of millions, maybe more. I don't know what the number is, but it's a substantial number of damage to farmers and their crops every year. So In Texas, you just have a hunting license. There's no season. There's no bag limit. So there's really no rules for hunting hogs. You can hunt with dogs. You can trap them. You can shoot them out of helicopters. You can shoot them with thermals at night. You can do pretty much what you want to.
Because it's population control.
Correct. The farmers in the state of Texas just want them gone.
Right.
And
because you're doing the farmers a favor.
Correct. And most farmers, I don't think we ever had anybody ask us, try to charge us or anything. They're just like, absolutely, catch all you can. And so we take dogs. We have 2 sets of dogs. You have a catch dog, which is usually a bulldog, pit bull, bulldog. And then you have the bay dogs. So they were like, hound dogs, blackmouth curs, catahoulas, these kind of dogs. So you get out on the property, you turn them loose, they pick up the scent, and they take off because they can run forever. And so they chase one of these things down until they get him stopped, and they start.
And they have body armor on.
Yeah, so the bay dogs will have cut colors on to protect their throat, but they're not the muscle. They just once they get one stopped, they don't go in and attack. They just kind of keep him.
And what kind of dogs are these? Are these bulldogs?
These are hound dogs, blackmouth curs, catahoulas.
Okay.
They're hunting dogs.
They're hunting dogs.
Noses, and
tracking dogs.
Tracking dogs, yeah, they can run forever. So the bulldog, he's the gladiator. He's got the Kevlar vest on, the big cut collar on, and he's the muscle. So he can't run with those guys all day long. So you keep him with you, keep him on a leash. And once they get one stopped, they start barking. Then you got to get there, right? So you might have to go a mile or more, however, through the brush and the thicket to get there. And then you get close, you turn the muscle loose. And that's why the catch dogs become special, because they just don't quit, dude. It doesn't matter. Once you let them loose, there's 2 outcomes. The hog dies or he dies, because they will not quit. And that's what makes them so cool. And they go in, they catch this thing. I've seen a 60-pound pit bull stop a 300-pound boar.
Wow.
They're just, everybody has these little pit bulls and stuff. And I'm like, oh, they're so sweet. I'm like, you have no idea what you have right there. And they just aren't trained to do that. So, but it's in them. And
so you have normally what, 4 dogs, or how many dogs?
You have 3 to 6.
3 to 6 dogs. So you have a couple of them that are kind of basically distracting. A couple of them that kind of catch on to the.
So the pit bull or the bulldogs, when he goes in and actually catches, he goes in, bites it on the snout or the ear.
Okay.
Once he gets hold of it, then the other ones will latch on. They kind of wait for the muscle to take the first hit.
Right.
And then they latch on, and then you get there, and it's cool because the dogs got to work together, and then they got to work with you. So it's like it's a team effort. And then you go in and usually you grab him by the back legs and get him off his feet, and then you stick him with a knife, and it's
yeah, that's the part that part. Let's go back to that part. This is literally Rambo style. You got a big ass knife, right? I mean, how big is that Rambo knife you're using?
You got to have at least a 12-inch blade.
12-inch blade. And you're going in there, you're not shooting it with a bow and arrow. You're not shooting it with a rifle. You're not even going in there with a Glock. I'm sure you probably carry one just in case.
Man, we used to not for years.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't take any guns. And we just took knives, and Brian had a spear just in case we got charged.
A fucking spear?
Yeah, he speared one time. It charged us, and Brian speared it, bro.
Like this, yeah. I've heard a lot of these stories, obviously, but I haven't heard the one about Brian and the spear. So
we baited this thing up. They baited up in a creek bed. And it's probably 6 or 8 foot, straight walls or something. So we're down in this thing, and he was up on the side, but he couldn't get out because it's too steep. The dogs are barking at him. We send the pit bull loose. The pit bull runs up the side, and this thing was smart because he was up there and he was in a perfect position. You always want the high ground in a fight, right?
Right.
So he freaking hit this thing and flipped it, and it didn't hurt it, but it flipped him, and he took off running right at us, right? And it's like a 250-pound boar. He got these big tusks on it.
Huge tusks.
Running, and I'm like, you're sitting there, and it's like one of these oh shit moments.
Yeah.
Because you can't get out. You can't outrun it. There ain't no tree to go up. And I'm like, oh shit. And Brian had that spear, man. He just stepped in front and just lowered it down and just speared it right in the chest and got it.
Man, straight out of Gladiator.
Yeah. So Brian is a gladiator. So
Brian is an animal, savage. Yeah. And you would basically take out, I was like, Brian, what are you talking about? Branch did what? Branch took out the knife and he just kept sticking him. And I'm like, damn, just blood everywhere, everything else. And I'm just like, whoa, that's some savage shit.
It's the purest form of hunting, I think. It's really hunting because it's physical. That's why dogs were domesticated. Their dogs weren't domesticated to be little house pets and, buddies. They were domesticated to hunt and, help people hunt back in the day. So, when you train your dogs and then it all comes together and you work together and you get one, it's a pretty cool thing. And especially with the catch dogs because, they're just tough, man. and you just really you bond with them, and it's just the purest form of hunting.
So what's the craziest hunt you've ever been on where it was just got just super sketchy?
You know, actually, as far as like any hunt or just a hog hunt?
Any hunt.
I don't think I've ever had too sketchy of a hunt. I've been pretty blessed. I think.
I remember you telling me a story about a bear hunt that you did, but I think you had to go out into the middle of nowhere to get it.
Yeah, I've been bear hunting in Alaska, New Mexico. We actually hunted black bear in New Mexico with dogs.
Any of them try to attack you?
Never been charged by a bear, thankfully. Okay. So that could be a bad deal if you don't miss, right? So if that happened, but I'm trying to think.
I know Feroci went and did some bear hunting.
Yeah,
too.
he got his first bear, I think, last year in Idaho.
Yeah,
I remember. I talked to him afterwards, and you know, he actually posted the pictures of it. I know he got some hate, but he got a lot of love too. And I was like, man, good for you. You know, I think there's nothing wrong with harvesting an animal as long as you eat it.
Yeah,
you know, I think that's nothing wrong with that at all. So,
yeah, especially because if you're eating it, then you're actually utilizing it. Mm-hmm. But if you turn around and just want to take a picture with it, then it's just kind of, I feel like, is a waste.
100%.
And that's what a lot of people tend to do. And actually, shout out to him. You got his drink right next to you. Yep. So my thing is that with Seth, he leaned into it because he just said, "Fuck it, I don't care." You know, for those people that are hating on it, it's not who he is anyways. So, and I feel like trying to be able to be the true essence of yourself is so important because so many people are trying to please everybody. And now you can just turn around and say, "Hey, look, this is what I did. This was something that I'm leaning into, and I like hunting."
Well, you know, I was 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I was on a hunting show on the hit list, the Outdoor Channel, for 5 years. And so, man, we hunted deer, we hunted elk, we hunted all kinds of stuff, mostly bow hunting and some rifle hunts. But I was on that show for 5 years, I guess, and had a blast. So, but it was funny because in that setting, no one ever said anything. But if you post a picture of an animal, a deer you shot, and you're going to eat, it's like people lose their mind. So it's funny. But it's okay if you go to the restaurant and order a steak. So.
Nobody wants to know where it comes from.
Yeah, so
that's it. Nobody wants to know where it comes from. So what's next for Branch Warren right now?
What's next, man? I've got a lot of things going on. I'm busier than ever. Like I say, I retired and for bodybuilding, and then I got busy. So
you retired, and where you're supposed to slow down, and you got busy.
Got busy. Yeah. So I work very closely with Gas Better Bodies. Do a lot of stuff for those guys, and Michael been with those guys since started as an athlete back in 2008, and so fast forward now it's
15 years.
15 years. Mm-hmm. So do a lot of stuff with them.
You got Wicked Cuts?
Got Wicked Cuts based in South Lake here. So me and Scott James, partner, doing really well. We're over 5 years we've had it. So we're starting to really kill it. We're in I don't know how many, several thousand locations across the country. Yep. Doing really well. Just got some couple new accounts here recently.
Yeah, he's going to get me some of the new chips or this little.
Oh, you haven't had the chips yet?
No.
Yeah. So guys, if y'all don't know, go to wickedcuts.com and check it out. We've got jerky chips. So the best way to describe it is like a Pringle that's a chip, like a jerky chip. Yep. And they are like, it's like a potato chip. You bite one.
I can't wait to try it.
You can't stop eating them because they're so good.
What flavors they come in?
So man, you got Korean barbecue. We've got peppered, and then we've got spice one. Was it not jalapeno, but like a red pepper.
Okay.
Can't think of it.
There was one that he told me about. I went by the office I don't remember, 5 months ago. And he's like, "Bro, there's this one, and you got to wear gloves."
And that's Carolina Reaper.
Yeah, the Carolina Reaper.
That's our jerky. So that's it started off. It's our number one seller.
It is.
I've had 2 pieces. They were about this big.
And that's it,
dude. It's got ghost peppers, Carolina Reaper peppers, and what else I'm thinking? On a break here, there's 3 different peppers in there, like the strongest 3, right? And it is so freaking hot. It's like, I don't know how people eat it. We're doing a photo
I'm surprised
shoot.
you do that much volume because, see, I've had this, because my wife carries the products in her store, Nutrition Palace.
Scorpion pepper.
Scorpion pepper,
Carolina
But
Reaper.
it literally sells more than the other stuff.
Yeah, it kills it.
Wow.
So maple bacon, which is my favorite.
Yes.
Is it may have I think it just recently overtook it, but for years, Carolina Reaper was our number one seller. And it is, but we had a guy we're doing a photo shoot with, bodybuilder, and he was eating it. And he ate a whole bag during the shoot. Got another bag. I went up to him. I was like, "Dude, you ain't got to eat no more of this stuff, man." So I'm like, "Dude, this dude's gonna get sick, right? This stuff is so high." He's like, "Nah, man, I like it." He ate 3 whole bags of this shit in 30 minutes.
Was he fucked up?
No. And I'm looking. He's not sweating nothing. I had people eat this stuff and taste test. They almost pass out. It's so hot. They start sweating. They're chugging milk, all this stuff, and they're like, "Man, I got to sit down. I don't feel good." And I'm like, this dude ate like 3 bags like it was nothing. And Scott looks at me and goes, dude, we're pussies. I'm like, yeah, I know, right? So
yeah, and then they got to worry about it coming out.
yeah, exactly.
The ring of fire.
Yeah, you better eat some ice cream, chase it out.
Yeah, you got to do something.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. So these chips, I definitely got to check them out. You got to come drop some off, or I'll come by and pick some up because I get Scott's bragging about these.
They're really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
And it's something new. I think
Scott didn't go out and hunt anything to put in there. No.
Hey, I took Scott hog hunting.
You did?
Yeah, in a helicopter.
So guys, we're talking about Scott James. So Scott James, we got to get Scott on here too. We got to get in here and bust his balls. So Scott and I go way back. He was the original, him and Chris Ferguson were the original owners of a small little company with a red bottle. You guys might have heard of it, called Eno Explode is the product, and the company was called BSN. BSN's still around right now, but it's now, they had sold it to the parent company, Glambia, the guys that own Optimum. And quite a ways back, Scott moved here to Dallas, and him and I were at dinner Friday night, and I've known him, his wife, for a very long time, and that's who Branch is partners with on Wicked Cuts, and he's a big MMA fan, a big bodybuilding fan. He's a car dude. He's a man's man. But we bust his balls a lot, though.
Well, you have to in defense.
Yeah.
It's like called self-defense. out of nowhere, I'll be in the office. Here comes a grenade. Just blows you up. So.
We got some stories. I'll wait till he comes in about Ronnie Coleman. And when I was consulting for them, and me, Ronnie, and him were in Europe. And there's a story about him and I had to sit in the trunk of a car together.
I heard this.
You did?
Yeah. So the office is so crazy. This is Scott, right? BSN, right? The largest supplement company in the world back in the day.
Yeah.
So Wicked Cuts office Friday after 5. It's like war. We have these airsoft guns, right? They're like fully automatic. And so everybody puts their glasses on at 5 o'clock. Somebody will shout it out. It's war in the office. All the girls leave. It's like ceasefire until the women and children get out, and then the war starts. I mean, he would sit in his office, and he wore all the paint off the wall because he would shoot the wall and ricochet the shells, the little plastic pellets off the wall and get you.
Those things hurt too.
Dude,
don't
they hurt. They leave whelps. And finally, he shot somebody. They were up in the warehouse. They climbed up on one of the racks in the warehouse. All these dudes don't even talk about OSHA, man. It's like so many violations. But this dude climbed up in the rack. He was going to snipe us. Well, he's like exposed. So Scott goes around, shoots, and snipes him, hits him right here, and breaks his glasses.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so our HR girl, Billy, was like, you guys need to stop. No more of this. So our Friday night gunfight got killed.
I can't believe it. Look, nobody got an eye put out. That's awesome. Yeah, we got to get him on here because he is last. We have so many stories, and there's some stories I haven't even talked to you about. We'll put him on. We'll put him on blast. We'll bring him over here. You're gonna freak out about some of the shit that we had to do when we were going around the world. And I took Ronnie to Brazil. I was with Ronnie in Romania. I should say Budapest. We were in England. All of these things, and then he would just bounce in with Ozzy, or the sales rep back in the day at BSN, and he would just be like, "Okay, man, what are we doing?" And I'm like, "Bro, we just got done signing autographs. What Ronnie did for 8 or 10 hours. Then we do a photo shoot, and then he's like, "No, we got to go to these meetings. We got to do these meetings." And Ronnie's like, "Man, you got to give me some food." And it was hilarious. We go all over, but we have so many good stories of going around the world doing these trips for the last 20 years ago.
I've heard a few of them, but I'm sure I haven't heard all of them.
No. And honestly, I don't think he knows that there's some of them that I know that he doesn't know that I know.
Oh,
That's where we got to jam him up.
I got to hear this.
Yeah, we got to jam him up. Yeah. Something about a duffel bag of money.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. I got to tell you what he was going to do with it. Oh, man. So like I said, it's time to, it's the Truth Podcast for a reason. But we're gonna definitely have some fun with it, because we can give you a little bit of insight.
I just want to be here.
Oh yeah, you're gonna want to be here because, dude, you're gonna see that man sweat. He's got the same haircut as we do. He's got the shaved head, and you're just gonna be like, "Hey man, let's talk."
Hey, don't change the subject, bro.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna jam him up. But yeah, man. All honesty, thank you so much for stopping by. What'd you think of the gym?
Incredible.
You like it?
I think the Panada equipment's the Ferrari of equipment, man. So beautiful, and man, well thought out. I expect nothing less from you.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Man, it's a badass facility. So you've done, like I said, welcome to Texas. Your
Thank
facility
you.
looks great.
Thank you so much.
And so welcome to the land of the free.
Oh, man. Yep, absolutely. Welcome to America. And no, I appreciate it. You definitely, next time you're going to come train?
100%.
I'll turn down the air conditioning. So we can get a workout together. Maybe 100%. We'll get Hany in that workout.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely do it. Guys, thank you guys so much. Just remember, make sure you like, you subscribe, throw a comment, let me know who you'd like to see on the podcast. If you want questions, because we're going to have Branch is just literally like a half an hour away, get him here on the regular, have some fun, maybe talk a little bit about shows that are coming up. Maybe we'll do breakdowns after shows and be able to utilize many, many years of his experiences. So again, God bless. Thank you so much, Branch, for joining us at the Truth Podcast. Branch Warren, Hany Rambod, and that's the truth.